Throughout its history, the Soviet Union pushed the boundaries of science, technology, and industrial might. As the world's second-largest economy and home to the largest standing military of its time, the USSR became a powerhouse of innovation that often stunned the West. From pioneering space exploration to building machines that seemed plucked from science fiction, the Soviets left behind a legacy of strange yet brilliant engineering marvels. Many of these designs were so ahead of their time that Western nations spent decades trying to replicate or understand them. With that in mind, here are 15 weird Soviet machines that the West couldn't help but study, admire, and in many cases, imitate. Lund-class Ekranoplan. The Lund-class Ekranoplan is one of the strangest and most fascinating machines to ever take to the sea, or rather, just above it. Built by the Soviet Union during the Cold War, this massive ground-effect vehicle looks like a bizarre cross between an airplane, a ship, and a futuristic beast. Instead of flying at high altitudes, the Lund glided just a few meters above the water surface, using the aerodynamic ground effect to stay aloft. Its stubby wings, gargantuan fuselage, and forward-facing jet engines mounted on short wing roots gave it a surreal, almost alien appearance. Measuring nearly 74 meters long with a wingspan of 44 meters, it was powered by 8 powerful Kuznetsov Nk-87 turbofans, allowing it to skim over the waves at speeds up to 550 kilometers per hour. Unlike traditional ships or aircraft, the Lund could evade radar and missile systems by staying below detection range, making it a high-speed missile platform built for surprise and aggression. Its strange design was not just unusual but revolutionary, though ultimately it was too unconventional for widespread use. Only one Lund-class Ekranoplan was ever completed, serving as a ghostly reminder of a bold era of unorthodox Soviet engineering. So many have tried to replicate this technology for a long time, but none have been successful. Mil-Mi-10. The Mil-Mi-10, often nicknamed the Flying Crane, is one of the most bizarre-looking helicopters ever built. Developed in the Soviet Union during the early 1960s, this aircraft was specifically designed for heavy-lift missions, and its appearance reflects pure function over form. Built on the Mi-6 platform, the Mi-10 featured an unusually long, spindly undercarriage with tall, stalk-like landing gear that resembles stilts, giving it a strange, insect-like profile when grounded. This elevated landing gear allowed the Mi-10 to straddle oversized cargo, vehicles, or even prefabricated structures and lift them directly off the ground. Its narrow fuselage and high center of gravity only added to its odd silhouette, making it look like a giant mechanical grasshopper in flight. Powered by 2 Soloviev turboshaft engines, the Mi-10 had a maximum payload capacity of up to 15 tons, which was so impressive for its time. Despite its awkward appearance, the Mi-10 proved to be a capable aerial crane used in construction, military logistics, and transporting bulky equipment to remote or rugged terrain. While it never saw widespread production like the Mi-6, the Mi-10 remains a unique testament to Soviet engineering, where function drove form, resulting in one of the weirdest helicopters ever built. This design inspired the Americans to make the Sikorsky S-64 Sky Crane a helicopter that still acts like a crane to this day. Sputnik 1. While the USA may lead the space race today, it was a bold piece of Russian ingenuity that first unlocked the cosmos. Sputnik 1 was the world's first artificial satellite, a marvel of innovation wrapped in one of the strangest designs ever sent into space. Launched by the Soviet Union on October 4, 1957, this shiny metallic sphere looked more like a science fiction prop than a real piece of space technology. Just 58 centimeters in diameter, the sphere was polished to a mirror-like finish and equipped with 4 long, whip-like antennae that jutted out at odd angles, giving it a spider-like or alien appearance. Its minimalist, almost eerie design concealed a groundbreaking purpose. Inside its pressurized shell were simple radio transmitters that emitted steady beeps, which were tracked by ground stations around the globe. Though it carried no scientific instruments, Sputnik 1's signal confirmed the feasibility of space travel and triggered the beginning of the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States. The weirdness of Sputnik 1 wasn't just in its looks, but in how it transformed the world. Its haunting radio pulse caused both awe and fear, especially in the West. With its odd shape and simple function, Sputnik 1 symbolized a giant leap into the unknown, forever changing the course of science, technology, and global politics. Bartini-Beriev, VVA-14. The Bartini-Beriev VVA-14 is one of the strangest aircraft ever built, a bizarre fusion of airplane, seaplane, and ground effect vehicle. Developed in the Soviet Union during the 1970s, the VVA-14 was designed to take off from water, fly at high altitudes, or skim just above the sea surface using ground effect, all while hunting NATO submarines. Its appearance was unlike anything else, featuring a bloated fuselage, stubby wings, and giant inflatable pontoons that made it look more like a sci-fi creature than a military aircraft. Adding to its weirdness were two massive vertical stabilizers on the tail and a cluster of lift engines mounted in the front section, intended to enable vertical takeoff. These engines were never fully integrated, making the aircraft's already odd proportions look even more unfinished and experimental. The aircraft's multi-role ambitions gave it a confusing identity: part flying boat, part ground skimmer, part vertical lifter. Only a few prototypes were built, and the program was eventually abandoned after the death of its designer, Robert Bartini. Though it never reached operational status, the VVA-14 remains one of the most eccentric and visually bizarre aircraft in aviation history, a bold but ultimately unrealized dream of Soviet engineering. ZVM 2901. The ZVM 2901 is one of the weirdest land vehicles ever created, a Soviet experimental machine that looks more like a lunar rover than something built for Earth. Designed in the 1970s for Arctic and Siberian operations, this bizarre all-terrain vehicle features a unique dual-hull design with enormous screw-propelled cylinders in place of wheels or tracks. These massive rotating drums allow the vehicle to literally screw its way across snow, mud, swamps, and even shallow water. Its strange propulsion system gave it a completely alien appearance. The ZVM 2901 didn't roll or drive in the traditional sense. It twisted forward, the spiral treads digging into soft terrain and pulling it along like a giant corkscrew. The vehicle's two connected bodies gave it added buoyancy and stability, but also made it look like two tanks fused together in an experimental lab gone mad. Inside, it could carry personnel or cargo across the most impassable landscapes, making it ideal for remote Soviet outposts. Despite its capability, the design proved too slow and complex for a practical widespread use. Only a few were ever built, and today, the ZVM 2901 stands as a wild example of Soviet ingenuity and weirdness, an offbeat answer to the challenge of mastering extreme terrain. T-4. The Sukhoi T-4, also known as Sotka, is one of the strangest and most ambitious aircraft ever built by the Soviet Union. Designed during the Cold War as a response to the American XB-70 Valkyrie, the T-4 was a supersonic bomber and reconnaissance aircraft that pushed the boundaries of speed and design. From the start, its appearance was bizarre. The sleek, needle-nosed fuselage, sharply angled delta wings, and dramatic canards gave it an aggressive, futuristic look that seemed more at home in a sci-fi movie than a military hangar. But what really made the T-4 weird was its cutting-edge, almost alien design features. The cockpit canopy was covered by a retractable nose cone that would lower during takeoff and landing, just like the Concorde. Built almost entirely from titanium and stainless steel to handle speeds over Mach 3, the aircraft was a technological marvel that looked like a flying spear. Despite its innovative structure and stunning performance goals, the T4 program was short-lived. Only one prototype ever flew before the project was cancelled, likely due to cost, complexity, and shifting military priorities. Even so, the T4 remains a bold and strange relic of Soviet aerospace ambition, unmatched in its audacity and appearance. Vostok 1. The USA may have sent many astronauts into space, but the Soviet Vostok 1 holds a timeless place in history. On April 12, 1961, it carried Yuri Gagarin into orbit, marking the first human journey into space. At first glance, the Vostok capsule looked nothing like modern spacecraft. It was a perfect sphere, resembling a metallic cannonball rather than a sleek, aerodynamic rocket capsule. This spherical shape was chosen for its ability to withstand the stresses of re-entry at any angle, but it gave the craft a bizarre, minimalist appearance. The interior was just as odd. Gagarin sat in a reclining seat inside a compact, pressurized chamber, crammed with analog instruments, dials and switches, arranged in an awkward, unergonomic layout. There were no manual flight controls. Everything was automated or ground-controlled, reflecting Soviet mistrust of human error at such an early stage of spaceflight. Attached to the descent module was a large service module with fuel, power systems and life support, making the entire assembly look uneven and improvised. To exit after landing, Gagarin had to eject and parachute separately from the capsule. Despite its crude and weird appearance, Vostok 1 achieved the impossible, marking the beginning of human space exploration, with a spacecraft that looked nothing like what the future would bring. Myasishchev VMT. The Myasishchev VMT Atlant is one of the weirdest-looking aircraft ever built, a Soviet heavy-lift transporter that seems more like a cartoon sketch than a real flying machine. Developed in the 1980s to support the Soviet space program, the VMT was tasked with carrying oversized cargo, like rocket boosters and space shuttle components. To do this, engineers took the already massive M4 Molut bomber and modified it into something truly bizarre. The most striking feature of the VMT is the enormous external cargo pod mounted on top of its fuselage. This bulbous, whale-like structure made the aircraft look top-heavy and ungainly, with aerodynamic fairings added to help reduce drag, though the result still appeared awkward and unbalanced. The tail had to be radically redesigned with twin vertical stabilizers set far apart on extended horizontal surfaces to provide stability when flying with bulky loads strapped to its back. Despite its odd proportions and Frankenstein appearance, the VMT was fully functional and completed multiple successful missions, transporting parts of the Buran space shuttle and Energia rocket. Its weird design was purely functional, created out of necessity, and remains one of the most unconventional solutions in aviation history for moving massive payloads through the sky. Lunokhod 1. The USA may have been the first to land humans on the Moon, but the Soviet Lunokhod 1 earned its own historic victory as the first successful robotic rover to land and operate on the lunar surface. This groundbreaking mission marked a major Soviet milestone in space exploration. Launched aboard the Luna 17 spacecraft on November 10, 1970, Lunokhod 1 touched down in the Sea of Rains on November 17, becoming the first foreign object to achieve a soft landing on the lunar surface and operate remotely. Weighing around 756 kilograms, this 8-wheeled rover was powered by solar panels during the lunar day and a polonium-210 radioisotope heater at night to survive the brutal cold. Controlled by a team on Earth, Lunokhod 1 roamed the lunar surface for 10 months, traveling over 10 kilometers while sending back more than 20,000 photographs and 200 panoramas. Its odd bathtub-like shape, spindly wheels and dish-like antenna gave it a peculiar insect-like appearance. The rover was equipped with scientific instruments including X-ray spectrometers and soil testers that gathered valuable data about the Moon's geology. While American astronauts had walked on the moon a year earlier, Lunar Card 1 was the first robotic explorer to traverse it, proving the Soviets' unmatched skill in unmanned space robotics at the time. It remains one of the strangest and most historic vehicles ever sent beyond Earth. K-7 Bomber. The Kalinin K-7 bomber is one of the strangest aircraft ever built, a flying giant from the early 1930s that looked more like a science fiction airship than a conventional airplane. Designed by Soviet engineer Konstantin Kalinin, the K-7 was massive for its time, with a wingspan of 53 meters and a twin boom tail supported by long, spindly struts. Its most bizarre feature was its thick, flat wing, which was so large it housed passenger compartments, crew areas, and even a lounge. The K-7's design was radically unconventional. It had 6 engines mounted on the front edge of the wing and a 7th pushing from the rear, creating a strange layout that added to its surreal appearance. The twin tail booms and multiple vertical stabilizers gave it an insect-like profile in flight, while its fixed landing gear looked out of place on such a futuristic frame. Intended as a heavy bomber and troop transport, the K-7's enormous size and unusual layout pushed the limits of 1930s technology. Tragically, it crashed during a test flight in 1933, ending the program. Though short-lived, the Kalinin K-7 remains a striking symbol of early aviation ambition, remembered for its bold, weird, and unforgettable design. Project EKIP. Project EKIP, short for Ecology and Progress, is one of the strangest aviation concepts ever developed. Initiated in the Soviet Union during the late Cold War, this experimental aircraft looked nothing like a traditional plane. Instead of wings and a tail, it featured a bizarre saucer-like body that resembled a flying pancake or an alien UFO. The EKIP was a lifting body aircraft, meaning its entire structure generated lift, removing the need for traditional aerodynamic surfaces. Its bloated oval shape was designed for extreme efficiency, stability, and versatility. The aircraft could take off and land on almost any surface: water, snow, grass, even marshland, thanks to its air cushion landing system. Some versions were designed with shrouded ducted fans integrated into the hull, which only added to its unconventional appearance. Project EKIP's design allowed for massive internal cargo space and excellent fuel efficiency, aiming to revolutionize transport and surveillance roles. Despite successful small-scale tests, funding and political support vanished after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the project never reached full-scale production. With its odd proportions, futuristic shape, and radically different flight mechanics, EKIP remains one of aviation's weirdest experimental designs, a bold attempt to rewrite the rules of flight that ended up grounded in history. Deep of the